So, I try to do a poetic translation of this. With weakness clouding my mind, confused about dharma, no path I find. Tell me for certain what is best to do. I am your disciple, guide me through. So sometimes when we have why is Kirtan going on? So if you like, you can repeat after me. My dear Lord.
My dear Lord.
Even when there is no right way.
Even when there is no right way.
You remain the right way.
You remain the right way.
So here, basically, if you consider Gita's verses to be Krishna speaking, Krishna doesn't just want to instruct us, Krishna wants to empower us to apply those instructions. So we can take those words of Krishna and pray based on those words. So the Gita is not just wisdom, Gita is also Krishna. So let's look at how we can apply this principle. So who would like to read one paragraph from here? Yes, please.
My dear Lord, bless me to remember that no matter how confusing or confounding my situation is, you are always there for me to turn to, even when it is difficult to know what is the right thing to do. Let me grateful that I still have desire to do the right thing.
Yes, thank you. So, I was in the Middle East a couple of months ago, in November, and there was one. It's interesting, in the Middle East we have, although we cannot have any public practice of any religion other than Islam, at a private level there's a lot of devotees practicing very vibrantly over there. So even Rath Yatras we do, I hire a large hall, and inside the hall we'll do Rath Yatra. So we don't have temples, actually not many temples, decent temples, but we have programs in devotees' homes where we hire halls, and it's quite vibrant. And there is quite a close-knit community at various places. So there was one devotee's son who has recently got into history, that is what he wants to specialize in. And he told me that, his parents told me, can you talk with him? He has some very intellectual kind of objections to spirituality. So he said, so I asked him, we started talking, and he said that the single biggest cause of India's downfall is this belief that material problems will have spiritual solutions. He said the West did not believe this, and that's why the West progressed. Material problems require material solutions. And he said Indians were busy praying, or Indians were busy thinking that this world is Maya, and Muslims were attacking, British were plotting, and India fell. So he said that material problems require material solutions. His idea is that we need technological progress. So all this spirituality business, it is what has destroyed India. Now, I said, it's a very interesting thought. So now, I asked him this question, that when Arjuna fought and won the Kurukshetra war, did he win it because of the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita or the knowledge of the archery that he had learned from Drona? How many of you say knowledge of Bhagavad Gita? Okay. How many of you say knowledge of archery? Okay. Yeah, what is the safest answer? Both. So now, it is important to understand that how we so I will talk about this in three broad parts. So what I explained to him, that I use the acronym VAYA. it is solutions via spirituality. It's not so much spiritual solutions as spiritual solutions via spirituality. So now Krishna himself does not tell Arjuna that you put aside your bow and just have faith in me, you will win the war. So the idea is, it is not that Krishna rejects the material part of Arjuna's training or Arjuna's expertise. So when we say material problems, spiritual solutions, what do we mean by that? Are we saying that if somebody is saying that, oh, that means you should not do anything material, do only everything spiritual? If that is what somebody was recommending, that would be a misunderstanding. And that is not what Krishna is recommending to Arjuna also. Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna, the sign of your faith in me is you put aside your bow and arrow and just go into the battlefield without that. Isn't it? So Krishna himself is Ma Manusmara Yudhyacha. You remember me and fight. And how are you going to fight? Fight with the area you are expert in. Bow and arrow. Say, now, right now, this morning program is there. I heard some sound in the kitchen, probably cooking is going on. So the program gets over. And after that, all of you are hungry. So, oh, what a prasad. He says, no, our philosophy is chant and be happy. And what about food? He says, no, just chant and be happy. Just that I would like to hear on the Vyasasan, not from the kitchen in church. Isn't it? So the point is that this idea that spiritual solutions means materially neglecting things or neglecting realities, that is completely mistaken. So we look at this in three broad parts: vision, inspiration, and application. So when we say that there are material problems and they need spiritual solutions. So let's first begin with a vision of what we mean by material and what we mean by spiritual. So now when we talk about material spiritual difference, this can be understood in two different ways. It is in terms of content or composition, or in terms of intent or utilization. What do I mean by that? That, for example, in terms of content, we can say body versus soul. The body is material, the soul is spiritual. The body is made of the Pancha Mahabhuta. Which are the Pancha Mahabhuta? Anyone knows? Yes. Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, Khama. So earth, water, fire, and air and ether. So these are material elements. The body is made of these five elements. What is the soul made of? Satchidananda. So in terms of composition, the two are different. So the material spiritual difference at one level can be understood in terms of composition. However, this is not the only way the material spiritual difference is understood. So content means what it is made of. Content is what is it made of. But utilization or intent means what it is used for. So what it is made of versus what it is used for. So now, Srila Prabhupada would give the example that if we, now this mic, is this mic material or spiritual? Material. Material. But is it only material? Prabhupada said, when using it to speak about Krishna, it becomes spiritualized. What is the principle, Sanskrit two-word principle for this? It starts with Y. Two words, Y and V. Yes, excellent. Yukta Vairagya. Have you heard this word? Yukta Vairagya. How many of you have heard this word? Okay. So Yukta Vairagya means what? That Vairagya generally means non-attachment or detachment. Yukta means to connect, to utilize. So the idea is that everything that can be connected with Krishna is actually to be considered spiritual. It is not to be considered material. Why? Because it can be used in Krishna's service. Prapanchiktaya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna. Nirbandha Krishna sambandho yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So, the idea here is that we need to have a more inclusive vision. So here it is more like a content-centered vision, but here it is more of a God-centered vision. Can something be connected with God? Can something be used in the service of God? If yes, then it is spiritual. If it can be used in service of God, it becomes spiritual. So is a temple material or spiritual? Well, in terms of the content, the temple is made of stone or bricks or wood or whatever. The content is material. But the intent of the temple is spiritual. It is being used for Krishna's service. So if we see spiritual in terms of connected with Krishna, serving Krishna, meant for Krishna. So when we talk about the Bhagavad Gita does not in any place reject action at the material level. So the action at the material level is not to be rejected. So when we are studying as students over here, now we are practicing bhakti. Nobody is telling you, oh, have faith in Krishna, no need to study, you will pass your exams. That is not our philosophy at all. Our philosophy is that we remember Krishna and we also do our studies. We also do whatever we are expected to do. So the idea is, let's try to understand that when we are acting in the world, so what is the vision? What does spiritual vision mean? Spiritual vision means that at one level all our abilities, they come from Krishna. That I am able to connect everything with Krishna. That I am able to, my abilities come from Krishna. That the situations that are in my life, the situations are also coming from Krishna. Not necessarily that every situation is intended by Krishna. Sometimes bad people do bad things. Sometimes good people also do bad things. So the situations are coming within Krishna's plan. Upadrashta Anumanta cha. So Krishna is the overseer, Krishna is the permitter. See, many times when we face some problems, we go towards two extremes. Now whenever there are problems, we may overreact, where small problem is there and we get, somebody does something very small and we get very angry. And then often our reaction to the problem makes the problem worse. So we may overreact or we may underreact. Underreact means there is a problem but we don't do anything about it. So that is also not healthy. So if there is some small mistake that is done by someone, we don't have to get very angry about it. But if there is a big thing that is being done wrong, when Draupadi was being dishonored, at that time many in the Kuru assembly stayed silent, and that they were underreacting. So often overreaction happens because of Rajoguna, and underreaction happens because of Tamoguna. So sometimes we become overreactive or aggressive, and sometimes we become underreactive or passive. So now both of them are problems. So when our vision is that Krishna is in control, this cannot happen without Krishna's plan. That very understanding helps us to stay calm. So the vision is This is not outside Krishna's plan. If this situation has come in my life, no, Krishna will give me the strength to face the situation. That whatever the world puts on me, what Krishna will put inside me will be strong enough to bear that. So here, in between there is appropriate reaction. So now what does appropriate reaction mean? So that will be something which we have to decide. But the idea is vision. It's important that we have this vision. So when we become very angry, or we become very scared, or we become very driven by emotions or desires, we cannot react properly. So spiritual consciousness means that our vision stays spiritual. This is not outside Krishna's plan. Vidura had dedicated his life to try to help Dhritarashtra, help the Kuru family. And would Dhritarashtra listen to Vidura's advice? What do you think? Would Dhritarashtra listen to Vidura's advice? No. Is my English too high? Are you able to understand what I'm speaking, or it's a little difficult?
Yes.
Okay. So would Vidura listen to Dhritarashtra's advice?
No.
Yes, he would listen and do nothing. So he liked to listen to good advice, but that is all he liked to do, listening without acting at all. So he would listen, and then his attachment was to Duryodhana was so much that, see, for him it would just not work. See, wisdom is meant to be like light. Light means there's darkness and there's light. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. So it is the jnana which opens our eyes, and then we get light. So wisdom is meant to be light, but for some people, wisdom is like lightning. Now what does lightning do? What does lightning do? For a few moments there is light, after that again is darkness. Isn't it? So for Dhritarashtra, wisdom, was it like light or was it like lightning? Lightning. What you say makes sense, but I'm not going to do it. So what happens is that this vision, see, whenever any situation has happened, that situation is an event. But we see the situation in a particular way. We have a vision of that situation. So normally speaking, I spend my whole life trying to help with Dhritarashtra, and this Dhritarashtra is so attached, so foolish, that right, and so weak, that right in front of me, in front of him, Duryodhana is insulting me so viciously. See, in any traditional society, hierarchies and etiquettes are very important. In every society. Even liberal society has its own etiquettes also. But the point is that normally if somebody is an elder, we don't raise our voice against them. We don't insult them. So now what happened? As far as Vidura is concerned, he was in the father's generation for Dhritarashtra. He was the peer of Dhritarashtra. So now, in that situation, for Duryodhana to insult Dhritarashtra, it was a very terrible insult. Now Vidura saw that, and he could have said, oh, my whole life's effort has gone waste. But he said, no, there is some plan of Krishna over here. So whatever is happening, the vision is that there is some higher reality over here. It's not that we neglect the material reality, but we see that there is more than the material reality. There is a finite vision, but what we understand through our spiritual vision is, my vision is finite. And the finite vision is not the final vision. The finite vision is not the final vision. What I'm seeing presently is not the complete reality. It is a reality, but it is not the complete reality. So he saw that he could see an opportunity over there. here there is a plan. Here there is an opportunity for me to go away. Otherwise, I would have had to fight on the side of the Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana against the Pandavas. Now I do not have to do that. So it was a painful situation, but he could see that bigger reality over there. So generally what happens is, through our spiritual understanding, we get a bigger vision. That bigger vision is very important for us. So let's look at the next paragraph now. Who would like to read the next paragraph?
Bless,
Yeah.
bless me, O Lord, so that I can see your blessings even in situations when I see no blessing, even when life confounds me, thrusting me into dilemmas where no way seems to be the right way. Let me remember that there remains one right way for me, one that nothing in the world can ever take away from me. That right way is to turn to you, O Lord, who can find a way through even the messiest of situations.
Yeah. So, one of the. So, we talked about what is the acronym we were discussing? Yeah. So, spiritual solutions via spiritual means. So, when you spiritual solutions, you're not rejecting or replacing material solutions. That it is that we have a spiritual vision when we apply the solutions. So, vision is more in terms of how we see. So if we consider, if I am here, vision is in terms of how I see things. Then inspiration is more internal. It is, okay, how do I approach the situation now? How do I assume, how do I decide to tackle the situation? So in general, so I was talking with this, as I started this question, so I told this young devotee's son, who is also a devotee. I said that, you said that the technology is what is the solution. I said, is the West more technologically developed than India? He said, of course. But are people in the West peaceful or joyful? He said, that's subjective. We can't say that. He said, who uses more antidepressants? Is it India or is it the West? He said, oh, people have more money, so they use more antidepressants. Indians have money, they will also use it. I said, okay, be true. But that raises the question, if you have money, and if money is material and material things can make us happy, then why do you need antidepressants? Isn't it? So, the fact is, something vital is missing in life. If we take the purely material vision of history, the idea is that in the past, life was much more difficult. Let's not go into Satyuga, which is very, very remote past, but if you look at 200 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, life was much more difficult. None of the technologies and facilities and utilities that we have were there. There's no electricity, there's no cars. So physically life was much more difficult. And now, physically, relatively speaking, life is much more comfortable, isn't it? And yet, it's ironic that we are all, as biological beings, we are designed to survive. We are, if we consider that we humans are also animals at one level, we are biologically designed for two main things: surviving and reproducing. Now, ahar, nidra, bhai, maithunam cha, we talk about that. So now, the eating is for surviving, the fearing is for surviving, and then sleeping is so that we can survive, we reproduce. That's biologically what we're programmed for. So, in the past, when life was much tougher, and now, at least in the physical terms, life is much easier now. And yet, in the past, we don't hear of people committing suicides in mass. Now, more and more people end their lives. If life is more difficult, if life is easier now, then why are more people committing suicides? So the thing is that we don't just need material things for survival. What we need is material things are like the means in life. But more important than means is meaning in life. There are means and there is meaning. So spiritual truths are what bring meaning to life. So it is not, now if you look at back at the history of India, India was also materially quite prosperous, even till 200 years before. And that's why so many kings, so many rulers, so many invaders came to India. Nobody comes to invade a poor country. They will spend more money in trying to reach that country than they will be able to get from that country. It doesn't make any economic sense. The wars are not ultimately fought for only principles. Principles are there, but wars are fought primarily for at the level of power, for property, for wealth. That's a big factor in it. So India, it is not that, if we look at Indian history, it is not that material side was neglected. But the thing is that life is difficult. Life is discouraging. Life is depressing. So sometimes people ask, why are so many people getting depressed nowadays? So often my answer is, we shouldn't be asking that question at all. Life is so depressing, the question we should be asking is, why does everybody not get depressed? Isn't it? Isn't it that? It's like people ask, hey, nowadays so many people are attached to their phones. Well, I say that parents, especially in the West, they ask me that our children are so hooked on to their phones. So I said, that's not the question we should be asking. When the digital reality or the digital stimuli are so stimulating, the question is, why is everyone not hooked to their phones? So, why? Because deep inside us, we understand that there is something more to life. That, why is everyone not depressed? Because hope springs eternal in the human spirit. That we understand at the core, there is something more to life. And when we have some sense of meaning in life, at that time, we can face problems. Sometimes we say we are pleasure-seeking creatures. Have you heard this? We are pleasure-seeking creatures. That is true, but it is not the complete truth. Say, if we were only pleasure-seeking, then sometimes if there is a small kid in the family, some guests come, some relatives come, they may tickle the belly of the kid. And the belly is tickled, what happens? Kid starts laughing. Now, is the laughter after tickling happiness? Well, you can say one kind of happiness. But if that were happiness and we all want to be happy, we all could just develop a perpetual tickling machine. And we'll be happy for the rest of our life. Would we be happy? No. How many of you like humor? How many of you like humor? If you don't like humor, I'm very suspicious of you. Who doesn't like to laugh? But so somebody likes to. You don't like to laugh? So humor is a nice thing. So somebody says, okay, there's a comedy show. Let's watch it. Now, okay, if we are bored, we might just look at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. But if somebody tells us, for the rest of your life, you have I will take care of you financially, I'll take care of you socially. You don't have any obligations. For the rest of your life, just sit and watch comedy shows. Would you want to do that? Nobody, maybe for half an hour, 1 hour, if you're really fed up for a whole weekend, we might just watch binge on comedy shows. But after that, even laughing will become boring. Isn't it? So I want to do something in my life. So even if somebody says, I'll take care of your food, you can sit in a comfortable house, you don't have to worry about money. Still, I want to do something. So what happens is, we don't just want pleasure. We want meaningful pleasure. So the Atma is Sat, Chit, Ananda. So Sat is, first we want to survive. Why? Because survive is a basic feature of the soul. Because the soul is eternal, we also want to live on. And then Chit, because the soul is conscious, we want to make sense of things. We want meaning in life. Because the Atma is conscious, we seek meaning. And then the Anand is the character of the soul, that's why we seek pleasure. But the fact is, this is the sequence. We may want pleasure, but if pleasure comes without meaning, we'll get bored by it, we get frustrated by it. What we need is meaning in life. It has to matter, it has to count, it has to have some value. Otherwise, there's a tickling and being laughing and being happy, or watching comedy shows and laughing and being happy. It's meaningless. So the idea is, what has happened? Technology has provided us not ananda, but pleasure at the level of dopamine hits. Now you watch something and you feel a bit stimulated. We got some dopamine hits. You have heard this word dopamine?
Yes.
So when we surf something, we see something, we feel a little stimulated. So technology provides pleasure, but that same technology today, it has taken away meaning from us. That's why we use the word mindless browsing. What is the point of it all? So what we need is spirituality which provides meaning in life. What is life all about? What is the point of living? Why am I here? Now, these questions may not come in the normal course of our life, but sooner or later they start coming. When we study very much for an exam and we don't do well in that exam. Okay, what am I doing? Why did I work so hard? Or sometimes we may study for an exam, we may work very hard, we may succeed, but after that there's a letdown. Okay, I achieved this goal, what next in my life? And then also there'll be that disappointment, there'll be that letdown. So what happens in our life? Most of our life, if we consider this life to be the journey, in most of our life, we are caught in the how. How to earn money, how to get food, how to meet my to-do list. But there are some moments in our life when there is this moment of awakening. When there is, this could be when we start asking the question, why? How to get good marks in my exam? How to get more money? How to get more influence on social media? Also good questions to ask. But there are some times when we start asking the question, why? So science is the study of matter. Spirituality is the study of what matters. What matters? What is important in life? See, Krishna did not give Arjuna any war strategies in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna did not need to know how to fight. Arjuna's question at the start of the Bhagavad Gita was, why to fight? Why to do anything at all? So sometimes life brings us to situations where everything seems very discouraging and very depressing. And life will bring everyone to such situations, sooner or later. And at that time, if we do not have a sense of meaning and purpose in our life, then we will lose inspiration. See, suffering is going to come in everyone's life. But if we have a sense of meaning, that will make the suffering bearable. See, all of you were staying at home. Now many of you have come to a hostel and staying. Now you are staying in the youth center. So when you came away from home, in home, relatively life is much more comfortable. Many Indians, they want to go to America for studies. Now, generally, most students go to America after their graduation, for post-graduation studies. Some kids go to America after the 12th itself. Now, my brother, he went to America after 12th, and he was very young at that time. And there is a whole support group formed of kids who go after 12th to the West. Because there is completely different culture and they're all alone, very difficult to make friends. It's a huge challenge. Now, why would somebody take up all that discomfort, all that loneliness, all that huge responsibility? It's all because it's meaningful. Yes, I want to get education. I want to have a bright career. So the point is, we are often ready to let go of pleasure if it provides us something meaningful in life. So, when the Indian independence struggle was there, at that time, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose told people that you give me blood, I will give you liberation. तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा. So now, why would anyone want to give up their own sweat and toil and blood? That's not at all. There's no pleasure in that at a material level. But it brings a higher meaning. We want to liberate our country. So what happens is that in terms of our motivation scales, what will motivate us? What will give us inspiration? So what gives us inspiration? So actually, meaning gives us greater inspiration than pleasure. Meaning gives us greater inspiration than pleasure. So that's why I said that, why is everybody not addicted to their phones? Because phones, it gives them stimulation. But after some time, it just becomes meaningless. What am I doing over here? What is the use of all this? So everybody gets that feeling, what am I doing in this here? So what we need meaning more than pleasure in life. And what technology can never provide, what material advancement can never provide meaning in our life. It is only spirituality that can provide meaning. So it was something which is very important to recognize that without meaning, so what happens if meaning is there, then problems, they become bearable. They become tolerable. If meaning is yes. But if meaning is not there, then even small problems become unbearable. So suppose, you have gone to meet a friend, and that friend is a very close friend. Now there is their friend has a lot of relatives or other friends you don't like so much. But maybe this friend's birthday is there, this friend's wedding is there, and you go there because you want to be with that friend. But suppose you are going to a social event where nobody you like. And now you say, why am I there? What is the point of it all this, isn't it? So now for the sake of that friend, even if we are surrounded by some people who we don't like so much, that discomfort, that displeasure becomes bearable. So one of the biggest lackings in modern society is that while technology has provided a lot of comforts and a lot of pleasures, it has taken away meaning from life. It has made life meaningless for people. And that is a huge loss. So what am I living for? If ultimately I don't believe, that there is no God, there is no soul. See, atheism, one of the biggest, there are various arguments against atheism. There are philosophical arguments, but there is a psychological argument. The strongest psychological argument against atheism is that atheism does not remove the problems of life. Whether you are a devotee or a non-devotee, materialist or spiritualist, theist or atheist, everybody will grow old, everybody will get diseased, everybody will face the Trividha Tapa. But what atheism does is, atheism does not remove problems, it removes the hope that the problems may have some purpose. Atheism does not remove problems. Everybody will have to face the same problems. It removes our hope that these problems may be a part of some higher plan. These problems will serve some purpose. Through this problem, something good will come about. This is the sense of meaning in life. So every one of us needs meaning. And as students, all of you are now practicing spirituality. Now spirituality gives you a greater vision that you are not just alone. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatana. So I'll give a practical example of what meaning means in this context. Say, When Krishna says, you are my part, you are always my part. What this means it at a philosophical level it is, you are my part, or I am a part of Krishna. Now what it means at a psychological level is that means I am a part of Krishna's plan. And I will always be a part of Krishna's plan. So like say, now the T20 World Cup is going on. So if a player is selected in an Indian cricket team, now if you are a part of the Indian cricket team, then you will have a part in the Indian cricket team. Isn't it? I am a part means, let's put it another way, I am a part means I have a part. So if somebody is selected in the Indian team, okay, you might be there as a bowler, you might be there as a batsman, you might be there as a wicket keeper. You have a part over there. Now of course, there is a fixed part, but there are variable roles also. Sometimes the bowler may have to bat. Sometimes the batsman may also have to bowl. So roles may change slightly based on the team situation. But the point is, I have a part. Now of course on the Indian team, somebody doesn't play their part, well they may be dropped. But Krishna says, I will never drop you. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatana. You are always my part. So what is the sense of meaning that spirituality gives us? That actually we are not all alone in life trying to struggle to find some meaning in a meaningless world. It's like suppose there is a pandemic and then say we have some medical training. Now we can help people at that time to some degree. But suppose there is a master doctor or master physician who is expert in treating people. And that person tells us, okay, you play this role. You administer this medicine, you give this injection, you do this, do this, do this. What happens then? What we do becomes much more meaningful because it becomes a part of something much bigger. So at that time, so if there is a hospital, there is all pain everywhere, some people are crying, some people are complaining, and we are horrified. What am I to do? I'll also get the disease and I'll also suffer and I'll also die. What is this? This is terrible. But if we understand, okay, there's this doctor and this is the role I can play, then we will, although there will be pain all around, we will have a sense of purpose over there. And with that sense of purpose, when we move ahead, we'll be able to deal with that situation much better. So spirituality provides us that sense of purpose in life, that sense of meaning in life. There was many prominent atheistic philosophers were there. You can call them philosophers, you can call them philosophers. Philosophers means the sophistry of fools, the false logic of fools. But their philosophy is extremely negative. So there was one atheistic philosopher, he said, life is suffering. And the more you try to remove suffering, the worse it becomes. And you say, hey, this is Bhagavad philosophy, isn't it? Dukkha ushadam tadapi dukkham. But no. The third part is, therefore, the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. Life is suffering. Whatever you do will only make the suffering worse. Therefore, whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. It's a very dark way of looking at life. Isn't it? So that sense of meaninglessness, it just grips so many people. So that's what spirituality provides us, is that inspiration. That our life is a part of a higher plan and that our life has greater meaning than what we can see. So for Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken not just to tell him, fight against the Kauravas. No, it was that this fight is not simply to take revenge. You are a Kshatriya, you are a part of my plan for Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami. So each one of us is a part of a larger plan. And to the extent we understand that, our life will gain greater and greater meaning. So whatever be the role we play in life, in future some of you may become software engineers, some of you may become IAS, some of you may become business managers and executives, whatever roles you play in life and future. So, whatever whatever role, some of you may become monks, whatever role you play in future, that is a part of a larger plan. Because you will always be a part of Krishna and you can act in a mood of service to Krishna. So what abilities we have, we try to use in Krishna's service. So it was, when we say spiritual, material problem, spiritual solution, that brings me to the last part now. What is the last part of the acronym? Anyone remembers? V-I-A. A was? Application. So we are talking about solutions through spirituality. So first we have a vision that whatever is happening, it is within Krishna's plan. And it is not just whatever is happening is in Krishna's plan, I am also a part of Krishna's plan. So Krishna can enable me, Krishna wants me to do something. And in terms of application, what do we do is that application involves two main things. How do we apply our situation? Application is where talent meets environment. So in general, how do we apply? See, Arjuna was a warrior. But even as a warrior, in the gambling match, he could not do anything. Because their archery was not required. Their gambling was required. Shakuni outwitted them at that time. Actually, he cheated them, but he outwitted them. But then, when the Kurukshetra war came, there was the right talent. He had the talent and he used it. So for us, when we apply, we understand that different environments require different talents. So now in the Kurukshetra, in the gambling match, the Kauravas tried to dishonor this Draupadi. And Krishna intervened and protected her. So that was a great miracle what Krishna did. But that did not mean that the Pandavas said that, okay, in future, whenever we have a problem, Krishna will help us. We don't have to do anything. No. When the Pandavas were in the forest, Arjuna went to the Himalayas to learn more and more celestial weapons. He did tapasya and got more and more Divyastras. And that was one key thing that differentiated him from Karna. See, both Arjuna and Karna were great archers, but generally if you have some skills, you have to keep upscaling, you have to keep upskilling yourself, you have to keep upgrading yourself. So Karna got very caught in pleasing Duryodhana. So he uses archery to fight and win wars for Duryodhana, so that he could also perform yajnas like Yudhishthira had performed the Rajasuya yajna. Duryodhana performed something called a Vaishnava yajna. Now he had no interest in Vishnu, but he had only interest in Vaishnava yajna because it was for prestige. Krishna talks about this as Yajante Nama Yajnaiste. The demoniac people, they don't do Nama Yajna, they do Yajna for Nama. And they do Yajna for fame. For fame. So he did like that. So what happened was, so he did not do any further austerities to get any further celestial weapons. He got one weapon, which was like a deal. He gave his kavacha and then Indra gave him the Shakti Astra. But Arjuna got an array of weapons. And so Arjuna did not think that, oh, Krishna will protect me, so I don't have to develop any skills. No, he said that I also have to develop my skills. So the talent, we find the right talent and then we find the right environment. So Yudhishthira was not such a great warrior. So he did not, it is Yudhishthira, the one major warrior that he killed was Shalya. And all the big names on the opposite side, they were killed by either Bhima or Arjuna. But then when it came to administration, Yudhishthira was the wisest person. And he was told to become the king. So application means that we see that what is the talent Krishna has given me and what is the environment in which I can use that talent. And when talent means environment, adhishthanam tatha karta karanam cha putakvida vividhasya putak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchara. So karanam, this is 18.14 in the Bhagavad Gita, karanam refers to our senses which have particular talents. and the environment is adhishthana. So where talent meets environment, that is where we can have application. So now why did India fall? Going back to the starting question to conclude this class, I told him, it was not India fell because India was too spiritual. It was that due to a misunderstanding of spirituality, exactly what Krishna told Arjuna not to do, many Kshatriyas started doing that. That is that Kshatriyas started acting like Brahmanas. The problem is not that spirituality was too much. The problem was spirituality was misunderstood. Kshatriyas are meant to fight. Arjuna was thinking, oh, why should we fight for a kingdom? Let us live peacefully. So Krishna told Arjuna that you may want to live peacefully, but Duryodhana will not want to live peacefully. You may say, I will not fight, but that is not going to stop Duryodhana from fighting. Yes. Duryodhana will keep fighting, and Duryodhana will keep fighting, and if Arjuna is not there, it's quite likely the war will be last much longer. The Pandavas will have much more casualties. Some of Pandavas, Arjuna's brothers may also die. Arjuna, you will not be able to live with yourself if you are passive while your brothers are killed. If somehow they get Duryodhana to stop, okay, don't attack the Pandavas will live peacefully in the forest. Still Duryodhana will not let go. He will try to get back at all those who supported the Pandavas. Say, recently, about last year, America had this, there is a Russia-Ukraine war going on, and America wants to put tariff on Russia. Or America wants to pressurize Russia. So, they wanted India not to take any oil from Russia. And that's why they put a huge tariff. Now, India is not supporting Russia directly. But because India is taking oil, so what happened? America tried to impose tariff on India. So, the idea is that Duryodhana would not just get back at the Pandavas, Duryodhana will try to get back at all those who supported the Pandavas. Because before the war, what would happen? What was happening was both sides, the Pandavas and Kauravas, were seeking allies. And if Duryodhana, you supported them, I will teach you a lesson. And then again, Arjuna will not be able to live with himself. So Krishna tells Arjuna that you are a Kshatriya, you cannot act like a Brahmana. You need to fight. So Kshatriyas, they have to focus on justice. The Brahmanas focus on forgiveness. Forgiveness is important, but justice is even more important. In California, they made a rule during the pandemic that, people don't have jobs, people don't have money. So if somebody breaks into some shop and they shoplift, they decide some amount in different parts, say if they shoplift up to $700 amount, the government will not even arrest them or arraign them for some charges. And they said, poor people will want food. But poor people came not to take food. They would find refurbished iPhones worth less than $700 and steal those. And then they would sell them on eBay. Or they would have Louis Vuitton purses and they would sell them. So the point is, if the government starts forgiving everyone for crime, that will be a crime. Isn't it? The government will be committing a crime. So what spirituality tells us is that, like taking from the inspiration, that we all have different talents and we all have our environments. So we understand our talent and we find the right environment for that talent and we act accordingly. So as a part of Krishna's plan, so spirituality is more about the consciousness. It is not a replacement for the action. It is not that when we say spiritual solutions to material problems, that does not mean that we neglect material reality. Now, if somebody is a Kshatriya, they can be a good administrator, they can be a good warrior, and they can defend, and they can manage, and they should manage. So, what spirituality will give us is, rather than everybody thinking that, I have to play this role only, I have to play that role only. In every society, some roles will be glamorized. But not everybody has now, see in the past, maybe for many years, becoming an engineer or becoming a doctor was quite popular. That's what parents would recommend. That was glamorized society. Everybody wanted to become if you're not an engineer, if you're not a doctor, then you are a failure and you are a loser. It was like that. Now, maybe everybody wants to become a social media influencer. Everyone wants to become popular on social media. Now, if you can become, well and good. But Not everybody may have the talent for that. And social media is not the only environment in which a person can function in some way. So what spirituality does is, once we get this conviction that I have a part in Krishna's plan, I look at what is my talent and what is the environment in which I can contribute. So Srila Prabhupada was told by his spiritual master, go and preach in the Western world. Now, Prabhupada thought, I am a grahastha right now, I have a responsibility. So I'll focus on earning money and I'll give donations to my spiritual master's mission. Now Prabhupada worked on that very hard. He took care of his family responsibilities, but eventually what he found was that his talent, Prabhupada, even when he was a pharmacist, Prabhupada would, while talking, giving pharmaceutical medicine, would start having philosophical discussions with people. Because by nature, he was a teacher. So the talent was for teaching, and then when he went to the West, he found the environment where he communicated to people. And of course, what Prabhupada was doing was always spiritual. Even when he was working as a pharmacist, even as a grahastha, he was still in a spiritual consciousness. But in terms of application, when the talent and the environment came together, that's when there was a dramatic transformation. The outreach just dramatically worked. So spirituality gives us that clarity by which we can understand what is my talent and what is the environment I can act in. And every one of us, whatever be the talents we have, we can find the right environments by our spiritual clarity, and then we can contribute in future in a way that is meaningful. So I'll summarize. Our topic was material problems and spiritual solutions. So what it does not mean and what it means. How material problems have spiritual solutions. So what was the 3 points I discussed? So Vaya. V was what? Vision. So the vision is, so we are not talking about spiritual solutions as replacing material problems. It is more like solutions via spirituality. So it is solutions via spirituality. So Vaya was the acronym. So V is vision. So in vision we discussed how any situation that comes in our life, we put that situation in a particular frame. We have to see the particular situation. So there's a problem and there is a vision of how we see the problem. So what is the vision? That everything is within Krishna's plan. So what happens for us when we have this vision that there is the material cause of the problem. Okay, this person did this and that person did that. So I give the example of Vidura looking at, he saw Duryodhana's action, how terribly Duryodhana insulted me, but he saw that this is also a part of Krishna's plan. So the material cause was Duryodhana's insult. Duryodhana insulted him. But then, in the spiritual plan, he saw that there is something more going on. The key phrase I discussed over here is our finite vision is not, the finite vision is not the final vision. So, that is part of vision. What was I? I was inspiration. So here we discussed, I spent a good amount of time here discussing that. We are inspired by pleasure, but we are inspired by something much more. What is that? Meaning in life. The Atma is Sat Chit Ananda. So we need Ananda, but we also need Chit. We need to make sense of life. That, and we discussed 2 points about this. That if there is pleasure without meaning, we get bored by it, isn't it? So, example of tickling or watching comedy shows. So, it does not work. And similarly, the opposite of that is that there is meaning, so rather we can say there is pain with meaning. That becomes bearable, not just bearable, we actually welcome it. Why do we welcome it? Because that pain is there, but pleasure, the meaning becomes a greater reality. I talk about India's freedom struggle, I talk about a student going abroad for studies, being alone. That when there is meaning, then life becomes bearable. And here the key point for us that materiality, material things can provide us pleasure, but they cannot provide us meaning. They can, through technology, they can provide us meaning, but it is spiritual truths that can provide us meaning in life. And atheism, it does not remove suffering from life. What it does is, atheism destroys meaning in life. It destroys the hope that the suffering can have some meaning. And the last part was, A was application. So our meaning, one part of it was that, and in a spiritual sense, that I have a part in Krishna's plan. Because I am a part of Krishna, I have a part in Krishna's plan. And then how do I know what is my part? That is the application part. So we find out there's talent and environment. So the idea is that we look inward to see what is my talent, and I look outward to see what is my environment. So in what talent, how can I find a match between my talent and my environment? So we discussed about, for Arjuna, it was the war. For Yudhishthir, it was the court. That he was a good administrator. So each one of us, if I understand that I am a part of Krishna's plan, like say if I am a part of the Indian team, then what is my talent and what is the environment? Okay, if I am a bowler, when the time of bowling comes, that's when I will be energetic. But if the team is batting and all batsmen are getting out, the bowler can get discouraged. But okay, and the bowler gets so discouraged, the bowler doesn't bowl at all well. Then even if there's a chance to win, you will not be able to win. So we look for our talent, we look for an environment, and where we find it, that's where we can have our application. So spirituality is not replacing material solutions or rejecting material solutions. It is given the vision, the inspiration and the application so that material solutions will be more fruitful. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick question or comment? So what happens to our life? What happens to us after our present life? Yes, so now we can look at it from a minimalist presumption perspective, that none of us knows what comes after this life. Now, how can we have hope if we don't know? There are two ways of looking at it. One is we guess. The other is we try to learn. So we guess means we could say, okay, I don't know what happens after death, so maybe there's nothing. And life is going to all be over. Now, even from a biological perspective, there's a serious problem with this. Why? Because if we were simply biological creatures, then why would we want to live forever? See, if we see that nothing in our environment stays forever. So, say if in a remote African village somebody is staying. Some kid is there in a completely tribal village, there's no internet, no social media, no phones. And that kid says, Mommy, I want a pizza. And the mother says, what is a pizza? How do you know what is a pizza? Isn't it? If there's nothing in the environment to inform the child about a pizza, how would the child get the desire for the pizza? So, if there's nothing in our environment that lives forever, people around us don't stay, the buildings don't stay, even the mountains don't stay forever, trees don't stay, nothing stays forever, why do we have a desire to live forever? So that desire is not coming from our environment. It is not coming from outside, then it must be coming from somewhere inside. So the very presence of that desire to want to live, it is against biology, it is against sociology, the way society is around us. So where does it come from? So if there is such a deep-rooted longing to live and live on and on, could there be some truth for it? So by our logical inference, we can be open to the possibility. And what reason points us towards, what logic points us towards, revelation gives much more clarity about it. So what the Gita explains is each one of us is a soul and we are spiritual beings. And the soul goes in future based on the kind of desires it cultivates. So the more we seek the eternal, the more we seek a connection with Krishna, the more we will move closer to Krishna. And the more we will ultimately attain eternal life. So what is the hope and meaning for us? If we act in a mood of service and contribution connected with Krishna in this life, then we will be able to continue that eternally beyond this life. Okay. Got a question? Okay. Any other one or two quick questions before we finish?
So can you more elaborate about atheism, how we can counter it more?
How can we counter atheism? Well, there are 3 different ways in an atheism is to be countered. One is at the level of science. Second is at the level of morality. And the third is at the level of history. Now of course, in all of these we are going to bring in philosophy. Now at the level of science, many people say if you are scientific, how can you believe in God? You should be atheist. That's their idea. Well, that's one way of looking at it. But the point is that how science and spirituality are presented. Sometimes we spiritualists also make a mistake. We say, oh, this is so complicated, this cannot have come by chance. Therefore, there must be God. So we often present God as the explanation for the unexplainable. That this is so complicated, it cannot be explained, therefore God must be there. But that is a terrible mistake. When we present God as the explanation for the unexplainable, then atheists can always say in future science will discover it, or science will explain it. But the point is, God is not the explanation for the unexplainable. God is the explanation for explainability. What do you mean by explainability? That science tries to discover what laws the universe works according to. When Newton felt the apple fall on his head, and he wanted to know, okay, what made the apple fall? And he was not interested in the answer, God made the apple fall. Newton believed in God, but he wanted to understand the mechanical way it works. What is the mechanism? So whenever there is an event, there is a mechanical explanation, mechanism by which it works. But beyond that, there is a higher personal explanation. Personal means a divine, devotional explanation. So, because Newton believed in God, that is why he thought this apple could not have fallen by chance. Why did he look for patterns in the universe? Why did he think that this apple could not have fallen by chance? If the universe has come by unguided natural processes, and even our mind has evolved by unguided natural processes, then why should the universe work according to laws of mathematical precision that our mind can compute? So this is very important. That's why the design argument, when we use, we have to use it very carefully. It is not, sometimes we say God is, design requires designer and law requires lawmaker. We present them as two different arguments, but actually the second argument falsifies the first argument. That, say, if the work is the universe is working according to laws, say you are making a pot, and now we can say a pot requires a potter. But if you have a machine, and the machine has proper, it works according to proper algorithm, it has proper pressure points and shaping points, we just put the clay on one side and the pot comes out on the other side. So the design of the pot does not come from a designer. The design of the pot comes from an algorithm, comes from a program, comes from a law. Now we can say the law comes from a designer, and that is true. But the design is itself not coming from the designer. And the design is coming from a law, and the law is coming from a lawmaker. So what is happening is, when somebody starts saying, if we start saying that, hey, this design is so complicated, it could not have come by chance. Now if science comes up with a mechanical explanation for how it happened, then God is ruled out. So God is not the explanation for the unexplainable. It is, okay, this pot is very well designed. If it has come from this particular machine, then where did that machine come from? So the point is that we are not saying that God's existence is in contradiction to science. God's existence is the foundation for science. That, see, science begins with the assumption that the universe works according to certain laws. So why does science have that assumption? Now, what is the basis of that assumption? So in that sense, actually, if there were no God, there would be no science. Because if there were no God, the universe could just be functioning completely randomly. So the fact that the universe works according to laws is the strongest indication that God is the foundation for science. So this is where I think atheists have lost the argument many times, because we try to position science as opposed to God. So it's the mechanical explanation and the personal explanation both go together. They explain at different levels. Say there's an India-Pakistan cricket match and there is a final ball and a sixer is needed. And Virat Kohli is batting and he hits a sixer. And then at the end of the post-match, everybody is celebrating the post-match interview. They ask, okay, how did you hit that sixer? And Virat Kohli says, by Newton's laws of motion. And now, is that correct? And yeah, you could say that the ball came at this pace, he swung the bat at this pace, and the ball and bat hit each other at this angle. If that had hit at the top, then the ball would have ballooned up and the fielder would have caught it. That's true. But is that the explanation we are interested in at that point? No, the explanation would be a personal explanation. Okay, the ball bowled a bouncer. Did you anticipate a bouncer? Did you expect a Yorker? Had you practiced a shot? So, now mechanically it is true. And okay, you hit the ball in a particular way with a particular force. So the mechanical and personal, both explanations can coexist. So God is not a replacement for the mechanical explanation. God is the foundation of the mechanical explanation. So this is the strongest argument for the existence of God that I have found. It's a science supports that. Now in terms of morality, see, one of the biggest, strongest argument that atheists have is that why do bad things happen to good people? If God were good, why is there so much evil in the world? Have you heard this argument? So I was asked this argument when I was in America. He said, why do bad things happen to good people? So I told him, why should bad things not happen to good people? He said, what do you mean? Good things should happen to good people, bad things to bad people. He said, who said that? If the universe has no organizing principle, then what is good and what is bad? Isn't it? Who is going to, everything is based on biology. Isn't it? If a deer is being chased by a tiger. Now, if the deer is stronger, the deer escapes and the tiger starves and dies. If the deer runs faster. If the tiger runs faster, the deer dies. Now, is the deer's living or the tiger's living? Is it moral or immoral? No, it is biological, isn't it? So, is it good or is it bad? Well, that's just the way life is. So, why, on what basis we even have the category of good and bad? And who said that good things should happen to good people and bad things should happen to bad people? So, there is no basis for morality in the atheistic world. Because science is not immoral, science is amoral. Amoral means morality is not a factor in science. Because the laws of nature say, if somebody drops a stone from above, the stone can fall on the ground and break, or the stone can fall on somebody's head and their head will break. Now for the law of gravity, it's amoral. Isn't it? Whether the stone is falling on the ground or falling on somebody's head. But the point is, so within the purely scientific or atheistic worldview, there is no place for morality at all. There is no place for good or bad. So, and yet, we humans have a moral sense. And where does that come from? So, Darwinian theory basically focuses on the idea of survival of the fittest. Isn't it? But human morality is the opposite of survival of the fittest. It is actually sacrifice by the fittest for those who are unfit. Isn't it? If somebody is drowning, then a person jumps into that river to save the drowning person. The Twin Towers were falling. At that time, firefighters ran inside to save them. If we were all simply driven by biology, those people are unfit, let them die. You know. But while one part of us may want to live like that, but another part of us doesn't want to live like that. So where does the moral sense come from at all? If we were simply biological creatures, then we should not have any morality at all. Isn't it? There is nothing right or wrong. There is only what helps survival and what harms survival. But we humans, we don't look at things only from survival value. We look for what brings value to survival. Isn't it? If somebody is drowning and I don't help them, I won't be able to live with myself. I cannot do like this. So the idea is that our moral sense, now different people may have different degrees of moral sense. That is varying, but the moral instinct is there in everyone. And that does not come from our biology. So there is the most logical, reasonable explanation for that is that there is a divinity which has a sense of right and wrong, and we have been given that moral compass from that higher source. The moral compass does not come from biology. So atheism would leave no scope for morality. It does not mean that all atheists will be immoral, but if atheists are moral, it is not because of their atheism, it is in spite of their atheism. There is nothing in the atheistic worldview to promote morality. And if we look at history, now this popular idea that religion causes war. And if religion would not be there, the world would be so peaceful. Well, that is a complete distortion of history. The biggest wars in history were World War I, World War II. And what happened? Religion was not a factor at all in that. The war was caused by greed for power and ambition. If you look at history, the only time, or the time when the atheism was officially ruling the world was during the communist rule in China and Soviet Russia. And what happened? 100 million people were killed. Most people don't know what is the history of Soviet Russia. The government itself killed anybody whom they suspected. So the number of people killed during they call it the Red Rule. Red Rule is the Red Rule of China and Russia, communist rule. It is more than the number of people killed in World War I and World War II. So when there is no understanding that there is a higher governing principle, then the lowest instincts in humanity can come out. And people can do horrible things. And that is the verdict of history. So I think the strongest argument is simply from science. Now, different people may find different arguments helpful. And ultimately, the judgment has to be done in every human head and human heart individually. But overall, it requires faith to believe in God. It requires far greater faith to believe that this whole world exists without any organizing principle. Okay? So, theism requires faith, atheism requires greater faith. Okay? So, we'll stop here. Okay, last question. Yes, please.
Krishna, bro, thank you very much. Well, I want to pay gratitude for such deep concepts you explained to us. So my question is like in DIA, the material problem spiritual solution. In I part there is pleasure versus meaning, and meaning was given a greater part, like it is more important meaning. So my question is that the vritti, natural inclination of our like which we heard in last class. So meaning has some connection with vritti, like the whole cosmic manifestation is arranged in such a way like our vritti should, the meaning of life is to understand our vritti and according to work, or this will gradually manifest, or we have to do a hard endeavor to understand that meaning.
Very thoughtful question. So I'll repeat the question. That I said meaning is more important than pleasure, but how will we? Is the meaning according to our innate vritti, our natural varna vritti, our natural gifts that we have been given, and will there be something naturally revealed? Well, meaning has two distinct aspects to it. There is universal meaning, and there is individual or personal meaning. So the best metaphor, Vedanta Deshika uses this in 11.28 Bhagavad Gita. Purport, he says, Yatha nadinam bhavam bhuvega samudrameva vimukhadravanti. So the vision is given in the Virat Rupa that the rivers are flowing towards the ocean. So when a river is flowing towards the ocean, the example is that each one of us is like a soul. The soul is like a river, and the ocean is Krishna. Now we reach Krishna and we unite with him in a bond of love. We don't merge with him. But the point is, we flow towards Krishna. So for all rivers, the ultimate destination is to get to the ocean. So in that sense, all of our lives have one universal purpose that applies to everyone, that we are ultimately meant to reach Krishna. But at the same time, each river finds its own way to the ocean. If we consider the Brahmaputra river, it just goes straight and then suddenly it almost 90-degree turn it takes and comes. And while the river is going toward the ocean, it provides life-sustaining water for so many life forms. So like that, each one of us, while we are going towards Krishna, along the journey, we are meant to do good to others. And each river has to find its own path towards the ocean. There may be a bed along which it flows, but it may get blocked. So that means there is individual meaning. So there's a universal meaning that has to be understood from scripture. But there's an individual meaning that has to be discovered. Scripture is not going to tell us that. Scripture will give us guidelines to discover that. And so, talent and environment, how they will come together, it depends. So for some people, here also our past karma comes in. If somebody's karma is very positive, then what happens? Their talent becomes evident right in their early childhood itself. And they find the right environment also. If somebody is a very talented chess player, and their parents discover the talent at the age is 4 or 5, and they admit the child to a coaching academy. And that kid becomes the next Vishwanathan Anand or whatever. So that's talent and environment come together. Now in some cases, when a person's past karma may not be that good, then the talent may be hidden. The talent may not be understood or discovered soon. Or sometimes the talent is discovered, but the right environment is not found. So somebody might be very good at maths, but they are so poor that they cannot even go to school. Then what happens? Then they may have to self-educate themselves, and then eventually they earn some job, they do some job, and then while they do some maths or they do whatever is the talent is, they do it by the side, and then somebody appreciates them, they spot the talent. So, and then they are put in the right environment. So like that, for that we require self-observation to both understand our talent and to find the right environment where the talent can be utilized. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanand.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare